I'm Sophia, 20 years old, and my stepfather is my former boyfriend. He deceived my mother into throwing me out of our home. Yes, I come from a prominent, affluent family in New York City. My parents are renowned business moguls, steering a vast global corporation. I grew up surrounded by wealth and luxury, but I like to believe I stayed grounded, kind, and empathetic despite it all. Everything changed when I was 18. My father passed away, leaving an immense void in our lives. My mother, however, is a force of nature. She took the reins of the company single-handedly and not only kept it afloat, but grew it into an even greater empire. I admire her strength immensely. Then there was Ethan, my first love, a whirlwind of youthful passion and dreams. But our differences, our backgrounds, our visions for the future, tore us apart. He left, shattering my heart. One day, my mother introduced a new man into our lives. He was charismatic, polished, and seemed perfect. But when I met his gaze, a strange thrill coursed through me. Something about him felt oddly familiar, stirring unease deep within. I sensed he wasn't just here for my mother. He was chasing something bigger, our family's wealth and influence. I couldn't stand by and let him manipulate her. This wasn't just about money, it was about protecting my family, my security, and my future. So, I resolved to fight back, using every resource at my disposal to unmask his schemes and safeguard what was ours. Our story began like a classic teenage romance, pure, hopeful, and unaware of the chaos looming ahead. He was Ethan, a decade older, with a disarming smile and effortless charm. I was Sophia, a girl with ambitions that stretched beyond the city skyline. When we met in the school courtyard, it felt like destiny. Ethan was captivating, his witty charm and warm laughter pulling me in. He made me feel truly seen in a world that often passed me by. We were glued to each other, spending every spare moment lost in the dizzying rush of young love. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. Ethan had a volatile side, his temper flaring without warning, turning our fiery romance into a turbulent ride of peaks and valleys. His possessiveness was stifling, leaving me tiptoeing around his moods to avoid sparking his anger. I dismissed his outbursts as the growing pains of love, but they became impossible to ignore. Our fights grew frequent, fueled by miscommunications and wounded feelings. Yet for every low, there were moments of pure magic, stolen glances under moonlight, whispered vows in the quiet of my room. As I graduated high school and stepped into adulthood, our bond faced its ultimate trial. Ethan's controlling nature intensified, his insecurities erupting in waves of jealousy and dominance. He grew suspicious of every interaction I had with other guys, accusing me of disloyalty at every turn. I tried to soothe him, to convince him his doubts were baseless, but it was like trying to tame a storm with soft words. Our once bright future dimmed under the weight of his mistrust, trapping me in a relationship that felt like a cage. Then came the final blow, his betrayal. I caught him in the act, his lies unraveling like a frayed rope. The pain was excruciating, a heavy ache that settled deep in my chest. I wanted to scream, to confront him for shattering my trust, but words failed me. I walked away from Ethan, leaving behind the wreckage of our love and swearing never to look back. It was a heart-wrenching choice, but also freeing, a chance to rediscover myself and rebuild from scratch. Reflecting on those chaotic days now, I see them not as a time of loss, but as a path to self-awareness and strength. Ethan was my first love, but not my last. The scars remain, but they remind me of my resilience. Our relationship ended in pain and betrayal, but it taught me profound lessons about love, trust, and staying true to myself. As I stand at the edge of a new chapter, those lessons light my way toward a hopeful future. Life stabilized after my mother married Ethan. He seemed like a good man, courteous, helpful, a perfect fit. I welcomed him, happy to see my mother smile again, but something about him always felt off, a persistent unease I couldn't shake. Then, one day, everything unraveled. My mother asked me to fetch some documents from a storage closet. While rummaging, I felt drawn to Ethan's cabinet. He'd just left, and to my surprise, the key was still in the lock, as if he'd been in a hurry. I opened it and found his medical records. As I flipped through them, photos slipped out onto the floor. I picked them up, and as I studied them, my heart stopped. They were images of Ethan's plastic surgery. The final photo revealed the unthinkable. My stepfather was my ex-boyfriend. The truth hit like a tidal wave, stealing my breath and leaving me dizzy with shock. How could the man I once loved now be posing as my mother's husband? Anger and betrayal surged within me, threatening to overwhelm. If Ethan could hide something this monumental, what else was he concealing? What did this mean for our family? What was his true goal? The questions swirled, each more chilling than the last. I knew I couldn't confront him without proof, so I started digging. I pored over old yearbooks, social media accounts, and any trace of Ethan's past I could find. What I uncovered was a labyrinth of lies, a trail of deception he'd worked hard to bury. The truth emerged with horrifying clarity. Ethan wasn't just my ex. He was a cunning manipulator who had infiltrated my mother's life with an agenda. He had engineered our original relationship, playing the role of a devoted boyfriend while secretly plotting to seize our family's wealth. The revelation left me reeling, my world flipped upside down. How had I been so naive? How had I fallen for someone so deceitful? But as the shock faded, resolve took its place. I wouldn't let Ethan destroy my family or steal what we'd built. It was time to expose him and take back our lives. Armed with evidence and newfound determination, I prepared to confront Ethan and dismantle the web of lies he'd woven. The path ahead would be treacherous, but I was ready to face whatever came. The days after uncovering Ethan's true identity felt like navigating a battlefield, every moment charged with tension and dread. The atmosphere at home was thick with unspoken truths, heavy with the weight of his betrayal. Ethan's once warm demeanor had turned sinister, his smiles now laced with menace, his words sharp with hidden intent. I noticed subtle shifts in his behavior, the way he lingered too long in doorways, his eyes tracking me with a predatory glint. It felt like he was biding his time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But I refused to be intimidated. I dove deeper into his past, seeking the truth he was desperate to hide. What I found was a complex network of manipulation. Ethan had been playing a long game, charming my mother while scheming to take control of our family's assets. He'd been gaslighting her, sowing seeds of mistrust and distorting reality to suit his plans. Worst of all, he'd convinced her to turn against me, to cast me out of our home so he could claim my inheritance. The betrayal stung deeply, cutting through the fragile trust we'd built. I confronted my mother with the evidence, laying it out like a detective presenting a case. She brushed me off, promising we'd discuss it later. That night I overheard Ethan bad-mouthing me to her, spinning a tale that I was plotting to steal her fortune. He swore his loyalty, his smooth words swaying her. Disappointment crashed over me as she chose to believe him. The next morning I went to work as usual, but Ethan cornered me near the staircase, his smug look chilling me to the bone. When I returned home, a truck sat outside loaded with my belongings. My mother had thrown me out, just as he'd planned. I rushed inside to plead my case, but Ethan blocked the door. I shoved past him and faced my mother in the living room. To my horror, she ordered me to leave, accusing me of scheming against her. Her words cut like blades, each one tearing at my heart. I fled in tears, Ethan's triumphant smirk burning into my memory. I swore then that I'd make him pay. After being cast out, I tried tirelessly to reach my mother, desperate to reveal Ethan's true nature. Days later, she finally agreed to meet at a cafe near our home. At first, she clung to her trust in Ethan, unwilling to see the truth. But as I laid out the evidence, her face fell, the reality of his deception sinking in. The confrontation that followed was a storm of accusations and raw emotion, leaving us all shaken. My mother was heartbroken, realizing the man she loved had used her for his own gain. We returned home to confront Ethan, but he was gone. We waited until evening, but when his lies were finally exposed, he unraveled. His confident mask shattered, replaced by frantic accusations and rage. He stormed out, and we thought it was over. Then my mother's assistant called with devastating news. Our company was on the brink of collapse. Ethan had siphoned off all of my mother's assets and vanished. The blow was crushing, and I screamed in despair, wondering how we'd save our family. Update: 1 month later. Our family's bankruptcy became public, the news spreading rapidly. My mother, ever resilient, reached out to old partners and friends to save the company, but they turned their backs on us. We later learned Ethan had poisoned them against her with lies. Yet, hope emerged when my father's closest friend stepped in after hearing our plight. He helped us rebuild the company, and though Ethan's whereabouts remain unknown, this friend assured us he'd faced consequences for his betrayal. In the end, justice prevailed, and we emerged stronger, ready to rebuild. The road ahead is daunting, filled with unseen challenges, but with truth and family on our side, I'm confident we'll overcome. As I look to the future, I carry the strength and courage forged in this ordeal, ready to face whatever comes next. Thank you for following my story. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and hit the notification bell for more gripping real-life tales.